The internet is screaming about a cover-up. NASA hiding images, secret spacecraft, alien probes heading for Earth, a Harvard physicist accusing the space agency of burying evidence, a congresswoman demanding answers. China releasing photos that NASA won't. The object is 3I Atlas, the third confirmed visitor from another star system, and according to thousands of viral posts, the American government doesn't want you to see what their cameras caught. But here's what actually happened. A federal shutdown, bureaucratic delays, and a story that got twisted into something it never was. We're going to walk through every claim, every missing photo, every accusation of concealment, and show you exactly where the truth lives and where the myths took over. If you value documented space history and factual analysis like this, subscribe. It's the best way to support our work. Also comment from which city you're hearing this from. This script is researched and factual, using sources from NASA's official shutdown documentation published September 29th, 2025, Congressional correspondence archived at the House of Representatives, dated October 31st, 2025, are peer-reviewed astronomical papers from the monthly notices of the Royal Astronomical Society, published in July 2025, and real-time tracking data from the China National Space Administration, released November 5th, 2025. These aren't generic sources. These are the documents that tell you what actually happened, day by day, with receipts. Now back to the information. July 1st, 2025, the Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System telescope in Rio Hurtado, Chile, picks up a fast-moving object. Initial designation A11PL3Z. Orbital calculations come back within hours. Eccentricity 6.2. That number matters because anything above 1 means the object is not bound to our sun. It came from somewhere else. By July 2nd, the Minor Planet Center confirms it. 3I Atlas. The third interstellar object ever detected passing through our solar system. The first was Oumuamua in 2017. The second was 2I Borisov in 2019. This is only the third time in recorded human history we've caught something from another star system moving through our neighborhood. Speed is measured at 245,000 kilometers per hour, or 61 kilometers per second. That velocity is faster than anything gravitationally bound to our sun can naturally achieve. Hubble space. Telescope images. It, on July 21st, 2025, from a distance of 277 million miles. The photos show a teardrop-shaped coma, a fuzzy cloud of gas and dust surrounding an icy nucleus. This is classic comet behavior, but size estimates are uncertain. NASA scientists calculate the nucleus diameter as somewhere between 440 meters and 5.6 kilometers. That's a massive range. The upper estimate would make 3I Atlas larger than most known comets in our system. By August 6th, the James Webb Space Telescope observes it with the Near-Infrared Spectrograph instrument. Results published by NASA on August 25th show high concentrations of carbon dioxide in the coma. Nickel emission lines also appear in spectroscopic data, which is unusual but not unknown in comets. What's notable is the ratio. European Southern Observatory's Very Large Telescope in Chile detects strong nickel emission but weak iron in early observations. Most solar system comets show both metals in roughly solar proportions. This imbalance caught attention. Then comes the perihelion approach. Perihelion is the closest point to the Sun, 4.3. I Atlas, that date is October 30th, 2025, at a distance of 1.4 astronomical units, which is about 130 million miles Durs, placing it just inside Mars orbit. Standard procedure for any significant astronomical event is to coordinate observations across multiple platforms. Ground telescopes, space telescopes, planetary orbiters. NASA announces that multiple missions will attempt to observe 3I Atlas during its Mars flyby. The Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, equipped with the high-resolution imaging science experiment camera known as HiRISE. The Perseverance rover, Europa Clipper, Parker Solar Probe, the list goes on. HiRISE is the key instrument here. Its resolution is roughly 3 times sharper than Hubble's images from July. The camera has a 50-centimeter aperture and can resolve details down to about 30 kilometers per pixel at the distances involved. If 3I Atlas passes within 30 million kilometers of Mars, which it did on October 2nd and 3rd, HiRISE should capture the clearest images of an interstellar object ever taken. October 1st, 2025, midnight Eastern Time, the United States federal government shuts down. Congress failed to pass appropriations legislation for the 2026 fiscal year. The shutdown furloughs roughly 900,000 federal employees. Another 2 million work without pay. NASA releases its shutdown plan on September 29th, 2 days before the lapse. According to the official document titled Orderly shutdown activities. 15,094 NASA civil servants are furloughed. 3,124 are classified as accepted and continue working. Accepted activities include International Space Station operations, satellite operations, and Artemis program development. Data processing for planetary science missions, not on the accepted list. Public communications, not accepted. Image releases, not accepted. HiRISE captures images of 3I Atlas on October 2nd and 3rd. The Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter is operational. The camera functions, the data is recorded, but the ground team that processes, reviews, and releases that data, furloughed. NASA policy during a shutdown is clear. Non-accepted employees cannot work. They cannot access systems. They cannot approve releases. The HiRISE team at the University of Arizona, which operates the camera under NASA contract, follows federal guidelines. Raw data sits in archives. Processing halts. No public release. This is not a decision. This is a procedural requirement during a funding lapse. Enter Avi Loeb, professor of science at Harvard University, director of the Institute for Theory and Computation. He's been tracking 3I Atlas since discovery and publishing analyses on Medium, a public blogging platform. Loeb has a history of controversial positions on interstellar objects. He argued that Oumuamua might be an artificial light sail. He's now suggesting 3. I-Atlas shows anomalies that could indicate technological origin. On October 28th, he writes to the HiRISE principal investigator requesting access to the October images. Quote, I wrote to the principal investigator of HiRISE, asking, can I get the data? I'm a scientist. No response. The reason? Shutdown. The principal investigator is likely furloughed or operating under restricted communication protocols. November 3rd, 2025, Representative Anna Paulina Luna, Republican from Florida, sends a letter to acting NASA Administrator Sean Duffy. The letter states, this information is of great importance to advancing our understanding of interstellar visitors and their interaction with our solar system. She notes that HiRISE obtained images with spatial resolution of about 19 miles per pixel, roughly 3 times sharper than Hubble. The letter requests immediate release of the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter data, Perseverance rover data, and any supplementary information from other Mars missions. She also encourages NASA to fund new observations using the Juno mission near Jupiter. This is a formal congressional request. It carries weight, but the government is still shut down. As of November 3rd, the shutdown has lasted 32 days, making it the longest in United States history. November 5th, 2025. Representative Luna tweets, just had a good conversation with NASA regarding 3I Atlas. As soon as the government reopens, they'll be releasing images / data. Unfortunately, due to bureaucratic reasons, they cannot until then. This is the critical sentence. NASA confirms to a sitting congresswoman that the images exist, that they will be released, and that the delay is procedural, not intentional. The reason given is bureaucratic, meaning process-driven, not evidence suppression. But by this point, the narrative has already shifted online. Accusations of cover-up spread across social media platforms. The phrase, NASA is hiding the truth, trends. Speculation ranges from comet anomalies to alien spacecraft. Loeb's public commentary, which questions whether 3I Atlas exhibits technological signatures, fuels the story, news outlets pick it up, headlines like NASA accused of burying evidence, and Harvard scientist says agency refusing to show data proliferate. The actual timeline gets lost. Meanwhile, China acts. The China National Space Administration releases images from the Tianwen-1 Mars orbiter on November 5th, 2025. Tianwen-1 entered Mars orbit in February 2021. Its high-resolution imaging camera, known as HiRIC, is comparable to NASA's HiRISE, but with a smaller aperture, 38.7 centimeters versus 50. On October 3rd, HiRIC photographed 3I Atlas from a distance of 28.96 million kilometers. CNSA processes and releases the images within a month. The photos show a bright nucleus surrounded by a coma spanning several thousand kilometers. The images are lower resolution than NASA's HiRISE would produce, but they're public, they're available, and they undercut the claim that obtaining such data requires concealment. If China can release images, why can't NASA? The answer is simple. China's space agency didn't shut down. NASA's did. Now let's address the core myths one by one. Myth number 1. NASA is deliberately hiding the HiRISE images because they show something threatening or extraterrestrial. Fact. NASA confirmed to Representative Luna that the images will be released once the government reopens. A shutdown furlough legally prohibits non-accepted federal employees from working. The HiRISE operations team cannot process or approve data releases during this period. The delay is institutional, not conspiratorial. NASA's official statement on its shutdown page, dated September 30th, 2025, reads, as of 12:01 a.m. on Wednesday, October 1st, 2025, there may be a lapse in appropriations leading to a partial government shutdown furlough. Non-accepted employees will be furloughed beginning 12:01 a.m. Eastern Time and will be unable to work for the duration of the shutdown furlough. This is public record. It's not hidden. The timing of the shutdown, beginning October 1st, overlaps exactly with the October 2nd and 3rd HiRISE observation window. The data exists. The release mechanism does not function during a furlough. Myth number 2. The HiRISE images must show anomalies because NASA responded to a celebrity on social media but ignored scientists. On November 4th, 2025, Kim Kardashian tweets, "Wait, what's the T on 3I Atlas?" Acting Administrator Sean Duffy replies within hours, "Great question. NASA's observations show that this is the third interstellar comet to pass through our solar system. No aliens. No threat to life here on Earth." This response triggers backlash. Critics argue that if NASA can answer Kardashian, they can release data to researchers. But these are different functions. A public-facing social media response from a senior administrator is not equivalent to processing and releasing calibrated scientific data. Duffy's tweet does not require furloughed data teams. It's a communication from an accepted official addressing public concern. Releasing HiRISE images requires data validation, calibration checks, and approval from non-accepted personnel who are legally barred from working. The comparison is false equivalence. Myth number 3. Avi Loeb's anomaly claims prove 3. I-Atlas is not a natural comet. Loeb has cataloged 10 anomalies, including a sunward jet observed by Hubble in early images, non-gravitational acceleration near perihelion, a nickel-to-iron ratio imbalance, rapid brightening before perihelion, a color shift from red to blue, and the absence of a visible tail in November images. These are real observations. Loeb's interpretations are published in peer-reviewed preprints and on public platforms, but the mainstream scientific consensus is that these features, while unusual, fall within the range of natural cometary behavior. NASA's lead scientist for solar system small bodies, Tom Statler, stated to The Guardian in October, "It looks like a comet. It does comet things. It very strongly resembles, in just about every way, the comets that we know." The SETI Institute's Frank Marcius and Ariel Grakowski discussed 3I Atlas in a public livestream and concluded that its behavior matches expectations for an interstellar comet with high volatile content, particularly carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide, which sublimate at lower temperatures than water ice. The European Space Agency's observations from Mars Express and ExoMars Trace Gas Orbiter captured similar images to China's Tianwen-1 and saw no evidence contradicting comet classification. Non-gravitational acceleration is common in comets. When a comet approaches the sun, ice sublimates into gas. Those gas jets act like tiny thrusters, altering the comet's trajectory and speed. This is not mysterious. It's documented in thousands of comet observations. 3. I-Atlas exhibited acceleration measured at 60 kilometers per day squared, or 4 times 10 to the negative 7 astronomical units per day squared. This value is higher than typical, but not unprecedented for an active comet with substantial outgassing. The nickel anomaly is interesting but explainable. Early observations from the Very Large Telescope showed strong nickel emission and weak iron. As the comet approached the sun and heated up, iron emission increased, normalizing the ratio. This suggests that nickel compounds sublimate at lower temperatures than iron-bearing compounds, which is consistent with known organometallic chemistry in cometary ices. Observations published in October 2025 by researchers at Lowell Observatory and the U.S. Naval Research Laboratory noted, the reason for 3I's rapid brightening, which far exceeds the brightening rate of most Oort cloud comets, remains unclear. This is an open scientific question, not evidence of artificial origin. The absence of a visible tail in November images is also explainable. 3 I-Atlas passed perihelion on October 30th. After perihelion, comets often appear different because solar radiation pressure and solar wind push gas and dust outward, forming tails that point away from the sun. But if a comet loses a significant fraction of its mass during perihelion, as Loeb calculates 3 I-Atlas did, at least 13%, then post-perihelion activity might be reduced. Ground-based observations from the Naves Observatory in Spain on November 5th show no prominent tail. But the comet is also moving away from the sun and cooling. Activity decreases. Dust production slows. A faint or absent tail is not anomalous for a comet in this phase. Loeb himself has stated in multiple writings that the simplest hypothesis is that 3I Atlas is a comet. His goal, he says, is to challenge assumptions and ensure the scientific community considers all possibilities, including technological origin, given the potential implications for humanity. This is a valid scientific stance, especially for an object with unique characteristics, but it's not a consensus position. The vast majority of astronomers studying 3I Atlas classify it as a natural interstellar comet. Now let's talk about the shutdown itself. The 2025 United States federal government shutdown began at midnight Eastern Daylight Time on October 1st, 2025. It resulted from Congress's failure to pass a continuing resolution to fund government operations for fiscal year 2026, according to Wikipedia's live updated article on the shutdown. Last edited November 10th, 2025. The shutdown has continued for 41 days as of that date, making it the longest in U.S. history. The previous record was 35 days during the first Trump administration. Approximately 900,000 federal employees were furloughed. Another 2 million worked without pay. NASA's shutdown plan, released September 29th, detailed which activities would continue and which would cease. Accepted activities include ISS operations, satellite operations critical to life and property protection, and Artemis mission development. Public communications, non-critical data processing, and educational outreach were not accepted. On October 29th, furloughed employees received formal extension notices. The letters stated, "This furlough, non-duty, non-pay status, is not expected to exceed 30 days. Therefore, this furlough notice expires on November 29th, 2025. Federal workers were told that retroactive pay was not guaranteed without an explicit act of Congress. This created financial hardship for thousands of NASA employees. The HiRISE team, like all non-accepted personnel, could not work. They could not access systems. They could not process data. This was not a choice. It was a legal requirement. During the shutdown, NASA's public website displayed a notice. Due to a lapse in appropriations, NASA Gov is not being updated. NASA civil servant points of contact will be unable to respond. This notice appeared on October 1st and remained through early November. Yet Acting Administrator Sean Duffy, as a senior accepted official, maintained limited social media presence to address major public concerns, such as the Kim Kardashian tweet. This does not indicate selective transparency. It indicates that different functions within NASA have different shutdown classifications. The controversy peaked when Loeb appeared on the Joe Rogan Experience podcast and discussed 3I Atlas. He stated that NASA obtained the best image on October 2nd when the comet came within 30 million kilometers of Mars, but that the image was never released. He added that he wrote to the HiRISE principal investigator and received no response. He compared NASA unfavorably to the European Space Agency, suggesting ESA has been more honest in handling similar phenomena. This interview, published in late October, amplified public perception that NASA was withholding data, but Loeb acknowledged in the same interview that the shutdown was a factor. The problem is that nuance gets lost in viral clips. By early November, the story has multiple layers. Layer 1, real scientific interest in an interstellar comet with unusual characteristics. Layer 2, procedural delays caused by the longest government shutdown in U.S. history. Layer 3, a prominent scientist publicly questioning whether the object is natural. Layer 4, congressional pressure for data release. Layer 5, viral social media narratives claiming cover-up. Each layer is real, but when combined, they create a distorted picture. The myth is that NASA is hiding something because the data is threatening. The reality is that NASA cannot release something during a shutdown because the personnel required to do so are legally prohibited from working. If you value documented space history and factual analysis like this, subscribe. It's the best way to support our work. Also, comment from which city you're hearing this from. This script is researched and factual, using sources from the Federal News Network article published November 1st, 2025, detailing furlough extension letters, the Astronomy Magazine article from October 3rd, 2025, explaining NASA's shutdown impact, and real-time congressional correspondence archived at the House Committee on Science, Space, and Technology. These aren't generic sources. These are the documents that show you exactly what happened, with dates, names, and procedural context. Now back to the information. What about the China angle? CNSA released Tianwen-1 images on November 5th. The images were processed and made public within a month of capture. This demonstrates that obtaining and releasing such data is technically feasible. So why the difference? China's government did not shut down. Their space agency continued normal operations. Tianwen-1's HiRISE team processed data on schedule. There was no furlough, no legal barrier. The images are lower resolution than NASA's HiRISE would produce because HiRISE has a smaller aperture, but they still show the comet's nucleus and coma. CNSA described the operation as a technical demonstration, testing the orbiter's ability to track faint, fast-moving objects millions of kilometers away. This capability will inform future missions, including Tianwen-2, which aims to collect samples from a near-Earth asteroid. The Chinese images undermined conspiracy theories in one way and fueled them in another. They showed that Mars orbiters could photograph 3I Atlas. This confirmed that NASA's HiRISE likely captured similar or better images. But they also raised the question, if China can do it, why hasn't NASA released their data? The answer, again, is the shutdown. CNSA operates under a different governmental structure. There is no equivalent to a US congressional appropriations lapse. Chinese missions proceed on centralized funding schedules. The comparison is apples to oranges. Representative Luna's letter to Sean Duffy on October 31st included a specific request: release images from HiRISE, taken October 2nd and 3rd, provide supplementary data from Perseverance and other Mars missions, and fund new observations using the Juno mission near Jupiter. She argued that the data is of great importance to advancing our understanding of interstellar visitors. The letter was made public on November 3rd. Luna followed up with tweets and media appearances. On November 5th, after her conversation with NASA, she confirmed that the agency agreed to release the data once the government reopens. She also acknowledged that Dr. Avi Loeb was correct in his early analysis of the comet, though she did not specify which aspects of his analysis she endorsed. NASA's response to Luna is revealing. The agency did not deny that images exist. They did not claim the data is classified. They did not invoke national security concerns. They stated that the release is delayed due to the shutdown and will proceed once funding is restored. This is consistent with procedural explanations, not cover-up behavior. If NASA wanted to hide the images permanently, they would not tell a congresswoman that release will happen post-shutdown. They would cite other reasons: data quality issues, proprietary processing time, mission priorities. None of those explanations were given. On November 5th, NASA agreed to provide Representative Luna and her staff with a formal briefing on 3I Atlas. This briefing has not occurred as of November 10th because the shutdown continues, but the commitment to brief Congress signals that NASA is treating the matter seriously and transparently. Briefing a congressional office is standard procedure for high-interest topics. It does not indicate that the data is anomalous or threatening. It indicates that a sitting member of Congress asked for information and NASA is responding appropriately. Let's examine the timeline more carefully. July 1st, Discovery. July 21st, Hubble images. August 6th, James Webb observations. September, ground-based telescopes tracked the comet. October 2nd and 3rd, Mars flyby, HiRISE images captured. October 1st, government shuts down. October 30th, perihelion. November 5th, China releases images. Representative Luna tweets about NASA conversation. November 10th, shutdown continues. No HiRISE release yet. Every step has a documented reason. Discovery happens when Atlas survey detects the object. Hubble observes because it's the best available telescope for that distance. Webb follows because its infrared capabilities can detect gas composition. Mars orbiters target the October window because that's when 3I Atlas is closest to Mars. The shutdown halts. Release because non-accepted staff cannot work. China releases because they have no shutdown. Luna presses NASA because constituents and scientists are asking questions. NASA confirms future release because the data exists and will be processed when personnel return. This is not a conspiracy. This is a sequence of events driven by orbital mechanics, bureaucratic procedures, and political realities. Now consider the broader context. Interstellar objects are rare. In all of recorded human history, we've confirmed only 3, Oumuamua in 2017, 2I Borisov in 2019, and now 3I Atlas in 2025. Each one generated intense scientific interest and public fascination. Oumuamua was especially controversial because it showed an unusual elongated shape and non-gravitational acceleration that some interpreted as evidence of artificial origin. Loeb was the primary advocate of that hypothesis. He published a paper suggesting Oumuamua could be a light sail, a thin reflective structure propelled by solar radiation, possibly built by an extraterrestrial civilization. The scientific community largely rejected that interpretation, but it made headlines. 2. Iberisov was less controversial. It looked like a typical comet with a visible coma and tail. Spectroscopic observations showed water vapor, carbon monoxide, and dust, all consistent with natural comet composition. It passed through the solar system without incident. 3. Iatlas falls somewhere in between. It has cometary features, a coma, gas emissions, dust, but it also has oddities, the nickel ratio, rapid brightening, non-gravitational acceleration, the sunward jet. These features are not inexplicable, but they are unusual. They invite scientific scrutiny. They also invite speculation. In an information environment where viral narratives spread faster than peer-reviewed papers, speculation becomes myth. The myth is that NASA is hiding evidence of alien technology. The reality is that NASA is following shutdown protocols while scientists study an interesting comet. The public perception problem is that NASA's silence during the shutdown looks like avoidance. When a prominent scientist like Loeb publicly states that the agency is not responding to his data requests, it creates an impression of stonewalling. When a congresswoman has to send a formal letter to get NASA's attention, it looks like the agency only responds to political pressure. When China releases images that NASA has not seen, it suggests that transparency is a choice, not a constraint. All of these perceptions are understandable, but they're also incomplete. Loeb's data request went unanswered because the recipient was furloughed. Luna's letter prompted a response because accepted officials can still engage with Congress on high-priority matters. China released images because their system allows it. NASA will release images when their system permits it. The HiRISE camera has been in operation since March 2006. It has captured over 66,000 images of Mars. Its resolution is unmatched by any other planetary camera. When HiRISE targets an object like 3I Atlas, the resulting images will show details invisible to Hubble or ground-based telescopes. The spatial resolution of 30 kilometers per pixel at a distance of 30 million kilometers means the camera can distinguish features on the comet's nucleus, map the coma structure, and potentially detect jets or fragmentation. This data is scientifically valuable. It will be analyzed by researchers worldwide. It will be published in peer-reviewed journals. It will inform models of interstellar comet composition and behavior. But it's not going to show alien technology because 3I Atlas is a comet. How do we know it's a comet? Multiple lines of evidence. Hubble images show a teardrop-shaped dust coma, classic for a comet under solar heating. James Webb spectra show carbon dioxide gas, which sublimates from cometary ices. Ground-based spectroscopy detects hydrogen cyanide, another cometary volatile. The object's brightness increases as it approaches the sun, consistent with increasing sublimation. It exhibits non-gravitational acceleration, consistent with outgassing jets. Its coma diameter expands from 13,000 kilometers in June to over 26,000 kilometers in August. Consistent with warming, Tianwen-1 images show a bright nucleus and diffuse coma, again consistent with a comet. European Space Agency observations from Mars Express and ExoMars confirm the same. Every telescope, every spectrum, every image points to the same conclusion. 3I Atlas is a comet. It's unusual because it's from another star system, but it's not artificial. Loeb's hypothesis that 3I Atlas could be technological is based on the idea that non-gravitational acceleration without visible gas emissions might indicate propulsion. He calculates that the comet would need to lose at least 13% of its mass to produce the observed acceleration through outgassing alone. He notes that November images do not show a massive coma or tail, which one would expect if that much mass was ejected. Therefore, he suggests, an alternative mechanism might be at work. This is a logical argument, but it rests on assumptions about what we should see. Comets are variable. Outbursts can be brief, dust can settle, gas can dissipate. The absence of a visible tail in November does not mean no gas was released in October. It means we're not seeing it now, and even if the gas cloud is smaller than expected, that's a puzzle for cometary science to solve. It's not evidence of alien engineering. The technological hypothesis also requires extraordinary assumptions. If 3I Atlas were an alien probe, it would need to have survived millions or billions of years in interstellar space, withstood cosmic radiation and micrometeorite impacts, retained functionality, and executed maneuvers precisely timed to its perihelion passage. It would need to be made of materials that mimic cometary volatiles when analyzed spectroscopically. It would need to emit gas and dust in patterns indistinguishable from natural sublimation. It would need to avoid detection by every radio telescope that scanned it for signals. The SETI Institute monitored 3I Atlas and detected no radio emissions, no optical pulses, no technosignatures of any kind. If this is a probe, It's the most thoroughly disguised probe imaginable, indistinguishable from a natural object except for subtle kinematic anomalies, or it's just a comet with unusual properties. Occam's razor favors the comet hypothesis. The simplest explanation that fits the data is that 3I Atlas is a natural interstellar comet with a composition and structure slightly different from solar system comets, resulting in observable oddities. This explanation requires no new physics, no alien civilizations, no advanced technology. It requires only that comets formed in other star systems might behave differently from ours. That's not controversial. That's expected. But myths don't care about Occam's razor. Myths care about narrative, and the narrative of NASA's hiding evidence is compelling. It taps into distrust of government institutions. It suggests that elites know secrets the public doesn't. It frames a bureaucratic delay as deliberate concealment. It turns a scientist's frustration over unanswered emails into a whistleblower moment. It makes a congresswoman's routine oversight request look like a crusade for truth. None of these interpretations are accurate, but they're emotionally satisfying. They give people a villain and a hero. NASA becomes the villain, hiding the truth to avoid panic or maintain control. Loeb becomes the hero, demanding transparency and challenging the establishment. The real story, where a government shutdown delays data release and a comet turns out to be a comet, doesn't fit that structure. The myth also thrives on information asymmetry. Most people don't understand how NASA's data processing works. They don't know that raw images from HiRISE require calibration, noise reduction, geometric correction, and review before release. They don't know that furloughed employees cannot perform these tasks during a shutdown. They don't know that acting administrator Duffy can tweet, but cannot override furlough rules to release scientific data. So when they see China's images and not NASA's, they assume NASA is choosing not to release. They don't see the procedural machinery that prevents it. The timing of the shutdown is also suspicious to conspiracy-minded observers. It began October 1st, one day before the Mars flyby window. This looks like convenient timing. But the shutdown was not caused by 3I Atlas. It was caused by congressional deadlock over fiscal year 2026 appropriations. The date of October 1st is determined by the federal fiscal year calendar, which always starts October 1st. The Mars flyby date is determined by orbital mechanics, calculated months in advance based on 3I Atlas's trajectory. The overlap is coincidence, not coordination. Another myth is that NASA could release the data if it wanted to, but is using the shutdown as an excuse. This misunderstands shutdown law. During a funding lapse, agencies can only perform work that is accepted by legal criteria. Activities necessary to protect life and property, activities funded by prior year appropriations, and activities specifically authorized by law. Data release for a non-threatening comet does not meet those criteria. If NASA violated shutdown rules to release HiRISE images, they would face legal consequences. Employees could be disciplined, the agency could be sanctioned. The release itself might be challenged in court. NASA is not using the shutdown as an excuse. The shutdown is a real legal barrier. Representative Luna's involvement also complicates the story. Some observers view her letter as political theater, a way to generate attention around a viral topic. Others see it as legitimate congressional oversight. Both can be true. Luna represents constituents who are curious about 3I Atlas. She also chairs a committee with jurisdiction over NASA. Sending a letter to the acting administrator asking for data on a high-interest topic is within her role. The fact that she received a response and secured a briefing commitment suggests NASA took the request seriously. Whether Luna believes 3I Atlas is anomalous or is simply responding to constituent interest is unclear. Her public statements acknowledge Loeb's analysis without fully endorsing his conclusions. The Kim Kardashian tweet is another flashpoint. When Duffy responded to her within hours, but had not released HiRISE data weeks after the Mars flyby, critics saw hypocrisy. But again, these are different actions. Responding to a tweet takes minutes. Releasing calibrated scientific data takes days or weeks of work by multiple people. During a shutdown, one action is permissible for accepted officials, the other is not. The optics are bad, but the logic is consistent. As of November 10th, the shutdown continues. HiRISE data remains unreleased. NASA has confirmed it will be released when the government reopens. That's where the story stands. Eventually, funding will be restored. Personnel will return. The HiRISE team will process the October images. Those images will be posted on the University of Arizona's HiRISE public database. As all mission data is, researchers worldwide will analyze them, papers will be published, and we'll learn more about 3I Atlas. The images will not show a spacecraft. They will show a comet, a fascinating, unusual, scientifically valuable comet, but a comet nonetheless. The enduring lesson here is how quickly factual ambiguity becomes myth. When information is delayed, speculation fills the gap. When a scientist questions official conclusions, it looks like dissent against cover-up. When a foreign agency releases data that a US agency hasn't, it suggests selective transparency. None of these perceptions are entirely wrong, but they're incomplete. The full story includes orbital mechanics, government shutdowns, furlough rules, data processing timelines, and the simple reality that 3I Atlas is a natural object with unusual features. That's the truth. It's less dramatic than alien probes and government cover-ups, but it's what the evidence shows. In December 2025, 3I Atlas will reach its closest approach to Earth, about 170 million miles away, on December 19th. Ground-based telescopes will observe it. Amateur astronomers will photograph it. Scientists will continue monitoring its brightness, trajectory, and spectral emissions. By then, the shutdown may have ended. The HiRISE images may be public, and the story will move on, but the myth will linger. That's how myths work. They're built from fragments of truth, gaps in information, and the human tendency to see patterns where none exist. The myth of NASA. Hiding. 3I Atlas images is already entrenched in certain online communities. No amount of data release will fully dispel it, because for believers, the release itself will be seen as damage control, a sanitized version of what was really seen. But for those who care about what actually happened, the receipts are clear. July 1st discovery, October 2nd, HiRISE observation, October 1st shutdown, November 5th, congressional pressure, future release confirmed. China released their data because they could. NASA hasn't released theirs because they can't. Not won't, can't. The distinction matters. 3I Atlas is a comet from another star system. It's scientifically interesting. It's not hidden. It's not evidence of alien technology. And NASA is not covering anything up. They're following the law during the longest government shutdown in American history. That's the reality. The myth is something else entirely. Final point. The scientific value of 3I Atlas is immense, regardless of its exact properties. Interstellar objects offer a window into the chemistry and physics of other planetary systems. They carry materials that formed light years away, under conditions we can only model. By studying 3I Atlas's composition, trajectory, and activity, we learn about the diversity of cometary bodies across the galaxy. Every spectrum, every image, every data point refines our understanding. The HiRISE images, when released, will add to that knowledge. They'll show the comet's surface features, its outgassing patterns, its structural integrity. Researchers will compare them to solar system comets and to previous interstellar visitors. They'll publish findings. They'll revise models. This is how science works. Slowly, methodically, building consensus from evidence. Avi Loeb's role in this story is complex. He's pushing the boundaries of what's considered scientifically plausible. That's valuable. Science advances when assumptions are challenged, but it also requires rigor. Extraordinary claims need extraordinary evidence. Loeb has identified anomalies, he's proposed hypotheses, but the evidence for technological origin is not there. The majority of astronomers studying 3I Atlas classify it as natural. That consensus could change if new data emerges. But as of November 10th, 2025, it hasn't. Loeb's advocacy keeps the conversation alive. It ensures that scientists remain vigilant for genuine anomalies. But it also risks muddying the waters, making it harder for the public to distinguish between legitimate scientific debate and speculative fringe theories. NASA's handling of the situation has been procedurally correct, but optically poor. They followed shutdown rules. They communicated with Congress. They confirmed future data release, but they also left a vacuum that speculation filled. A more proactive communication strategy, perhaps through accepted officials, could have clarified the timeline and reasons for delay earlier. The fact that Representative Luna had to send a formal letter before getting clear answers suggests communication failures. NASA could have issued a public statement explaining that HiRISE data exists, that processing is delayed due to furlough, and that release will occur post-shutdown. That statement could have come from accepted personnel without violating shutdown rules. It didn't happen. The silence allowed myths to grow. The China comparison also highlights a systemic issue. When a foreign space agency releases data faster than NASA, it creates a perception problem. Even if the reasons are legitimate, the optics suggest that NASA is less transparent. In future cases, NASA might consider expediting data releases for high-interest events, even during constrained circumstances. This could involve pre-authorized processing pipelines, automated releases. or international data sharing agreements that bypass individual agency furloughs. These are complex solutions, but they're worth exploring to maintain public trust. The 2025 shutdown is now 41 days long as of November 10th. It affects not just NASA, but every federal agency. The longer it persists, the more data delays accumulate across science, defense, and public services. The 3I Atlas story is one example among thousands. Federal workers are not getting paid. Critical research is stalled. Public services are reduced. The impact on individual lives and on national capabilities is profound. The fact that a comet observation became a political flashpoint is a symptom of deeper dysfunction. Government should not operate this way. Science should not be held hostage to budget impasses. But that's the system we have. When the shutdown ends and HiRISE images are released, what will they show? Almost certainly, a comet, a nucleus surrounded by a coma, with dust and gas streaming away. The resolution will be higher than any previous image. Details will be visible that weren't in Hubble or Tianwen-1 photos. Scientists will measure the nucleus size more accurately, map the coma structure, identify any jets or surface features. The data will be published, papers will follow, and life will go on. 3I Atlas will continue its journey out of the solar system, back into interstellar space, never to return. By mid-2026, it will be too faint to observe. The brief window when we could study this visitor will close. That's why timely data release matters, not because of conspiracy, but because the opportunity is finite. The myth that NASA is hiding. 3I Atlas images will persist. It's already embedded in online discourse. Future references to the comet will include claims of cover-up. This script won't change that, but it will provide a factual record for those who care about accuracy. The story of 3I Atlas is not about government secrecy. It's about a rare interstellar comet observed during a historic government shutdown. The images exist. They will be released. And they will show exactly what scientists expect. A natural object from another star system, behaving like comets do. That's the truth. Everything else is myth built from impatience, distrust, and the human need for mystery where none exists. Cold, final, done.